We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Monday, starting out another week. It's going to be an interesting week. Had a long stretch of guests with me. We had Dan, we had Abe, we had Ed. It's been busy so far. Old Soul was earlier. Old Soul and Ed will come up again this week, and who knows who else will join us on the show. I really enjoy having the guest on the show. It actually makes my job a little easier, and it gives it a multi-dimensional aspect on the show. I mean, you hear what I tell you, and I read the emails, which we have some coming up, and it's good to get some different perspectives. But it's nice to hear another voice and to have somebody to look at when I'm talking to. It does help things along quite a bit. That said, from time to time, you're going to have just me. And this is one of those times. This show, it's just going to be me and your emails and whatever stories we talk about. So just hang with us here. And we got another show for you there every fucking day. So we got it covered for you. I wanted to talk about the start of this week. This is going to be an interesting week, I think. It'll bring us that much closer to Donald Trump's criminal trial on April 15th, which he is freaking about. And the way we know he's freaking about it is because he is ranting and raving about the Judge Marchand, and his daughter, of all people. He's got a gag order from Judge Marchand, and the judge didn't specify him or his daughter to be part of that gag order. So Donald Trump is taking uh, advantage of that situation. Now, the question is whether or not he'll be able to continue to do that. A lot of people have spoken out and pushed the judge to expand the gag order or do something to Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is pretty frantic about this. I mean, it's like 10, 20 times a day he's making these comments. And I don't honestly know what he hopes to accomplish. Is he trying to pollute the jury pool, or what's he trying to do? I mean, he did the same thing with Judge Engeron, and in the end, he was found liable, of course, and there was a decision of $464 million. So if Donald Trump thought he was going to accomplish something with Judge Engeron, well, he sure the hell did not. But as I've said so many times before, we're talking about a guy who doesn't have a lot of intellectual capabilities. He can't see beyond the end of his nose. Right now, he's flailing. In all honesty, when you get a narcissist caught like this, painted into a corner, they don't know what to do. They just flail, and they will do and try anything and hope against hope something they do works. And that's pretty much what he's doing with Judge Marchand and his daughter. But this is causing some problems, not only for the case, but for the judicial system in general. They can't allow this to happen anymore. Now, DA Elvin Bragg filed a pre-motion to the judge and say, you've got to explain more about this gag order and possibly expand it. Donald Trump heard about that, and now he's already whining about it. First Amendment, all that shit. But, Donald Trump's going to find things a little different in criminal court than he had in civil court. But right now, with this pre-motion that Elvin Bragg sent to the judge, Judge Marchand, he's going to have to respond to this. I'm a little surprised he hasn't responded already, but I think he has to respond now. There's a lot of heat coming in from other judges and other prosecutors, and of course, the DA's pre-motion. So I'm thinking we're going to see something come to a head this week, maybe even today, about Donald Trump and what he's doing. I mean, he's pretty unhinged with this. It's like 10, 20 times a day he's doing this. This is really kind of sick. And over and above the threat he puts on the judge's daughter and the judge himself, it really is fucking up the trial. And I don't mean fucking it up in the way that they're going to cancel the trial and Donald Trump win. Not that. But there's a lot of moving parts in a trial, the jury being one of them, witnesses being another. And if these people become afraid that their names will be exposed once they get in court with Donald Trump, it's going to hurt things. Trust me, the judge knows this, and the judge knows he has to do something about it. So that's why I'm suggesting, I don't know what will be done, but something will have to be said this week. And then if Donald Trump continues, there will have to be some accountability. Since we know he isn't deterred by fines, the only thing we can possibly think is being remanded to jail. That's about all there's left for Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is scared enough where he's going to keep going the way he's going. So we'll see what happens this week. I'll keep my fingers crossed and hope Judge Marchand does what he needs to do. And Donald Trump gets the accountability if he continues doing the bullshit he's currently doing. All right, we have some emails. First one. Hi, Boomer. Like many boomers, I was lucky to work for decades with the same group of smart and capable folks. My company cared for its employees and we stayed loyal, sometimes blindly, something millennials don't find so much and the guys following them won't find at all. You're absolutely right. There is no loyalty in companies anymore. There isn't. Even in the public radio station I work with, toward the end, there was no loyalty to me, in spite of the fact I was a valuable commodity for that company. If you think people are going to do the best thing for you and be loyal to you, that's not the case anymore. Don't be sucked in by that. Don't believe that. I'm not saying that you have to go after your companies, but if you get an opportunity, take it. Don't worry about leaving the company in a lurch because they won't think twice about walking you out the back door and sending you to your car on an hour's notice. That's just the way it is. You got to know how to play the game, and you don't want to be the dupe that gets duped by these fuckers. Email goes on to say I was extra lucky and worked for the smartest of all of them for a time. One of those guys was 3 steps ahead. He knew what you were going to say before you did. Love vodka, women, and cars, and in that order. Rest in peace. But once I asked him, how do you always know what's going to happen? And he said, Garage Door Jeff, I don't need to be a genius, but I'm going to insist that you have good pattern recognition skills. And of course, he meant that if you've seen the movie before, then I expect you to know the fucking ending. And all that was to say that when some of us get gloomy or start to reach for our pearls, sometimes it's our pattern recognition skills taking over. It's a fine line between that and pessimism. We watch the orange malignant fuck get away again and again and again and again. Offenses so egregious that it's beyond imagination. And that's exactly why we're here listening, to get a realigned and rebalanced, if you will. So to Erwin and Z-Man, whose emails prompt this, I feel you. Thanks, Boom. If I was still just consuming regular media, I'd be going nuts now. Instead, I find myself taking others off the ledge. Best, Garage Door Jeff. P.S. I know exactly one Cornell West voter, super liberal. There's a cohort of Dems who feel like it's somehow extra brainy to reject everything, like what Carville was describing as the fuck it all crowd. He's one of those, and there's a few of them out there. Betting we all remember them from 2016. I almost got in an actual fight with one due to the smugness of the delivery. Yeah, I love the smugness, like you're going to win. What are you, in fact, going to accomplish? And, Jeff, the idea of recognizing patterns, I hadn't thought about it that way, but I guess that's kind of what I do too. Now, you mentioned a pattern about how Donald Trump always gets away with it, and that's true. And that's due to his position and the weakness of the judicial system and the fear of everybody else in this country. They're afraid of what he might do. They're afraid that he's going to call them out or maybe primary them or something. It's all about fear. But if you're looking at patterns too, there's one other pattern you need to know. And that pattern is that Donald Trump always loses. That we have a pattern of losses by Republicans since 2018 up until now. They lose significantly. So patterns are a good thing to follow. And it's basically, when you're talking about patterns, you're talking about what happened in history and how it plays out. And the only thing you have to make allowances for when you're looking at patterns is, are the times now the same as when you were first experiencing the patterns? Because with the change in the culture or the climate, the patterns will change too. So you have to be aware of that. And some of it is just, like I say, taking a look at logic and common sense and see what's going on. What are the things that are going to make it go this way? What are the things that are going to make it that go that way? And which is the stronger bet? And of course, that's why I've always said Donald Trump can't win. He's got too much going against him, and he has absolutely nothing going for him. You know, when people think I get mad at other people when they say, "Oh, all is lost, gloom and doom, Armageddon." I'm not mad at them. I'm mad of the situation because when I put it to you this way: when I first started doing the TikTok, I assumed my job was to fight against Donald Trump, Trump-la-fucks, and the whole Republican Party. I felt like that's what I was doing. But one of the most gratifying things I get from you folks here on the podcast and, of course, TikTok is that every day, multiple times a day, people come to me and say, "Oh, Mike, you talked me off the ledge. Oh, Mike, I was depressed, but now I feel better." And I realize what my real job has been and will continue to be. First of all, it's to slow people's minds down. People's minds run real fast when they're afraid or when there's fear. And that's actually what I'm fighting against. People are smart enough to understand facts and such, but the fear clouds their minds, and they just get caught up in their feelings. I've told you before, it's a tough skill to learn, but you've got to somehow figure out a way to control your emotions as opposed to your emotions controlling you. Because once your emotions control you, you can't get anything done. Everything gets fucked up. You want a case in point? Look at Donald Trump. He's a ball full of emotions. He's reacting. He doesn't know what he's doing. He couldn't come up with a strategy to save himself because he's freaking out in his head. He's deeply insecure, as all narcissists are, and he's scared to death right now. This is why he's going to make the mistakes that I continue to see him make. Um, so anyway, doing TikToks and doing the podcast, I realized I'm not fighting against Donald Trump. I'm not fighting against the Republicans. I'm fighting against fear. I'm trying to help people not be fearful. Because here's the deal: without fear, there's no Donald Trump. Without fear, there's no Trump-la-fucks. Without fear, there's no Republicans. Without fear, there's no hurdles at all. If you're not afraid, there's nothing that can stop you. Trust me, this fucking works. I've done it pretty much all my life, going into things that I know are going to be tough, but in my mind, I convince myself I'm going to win this motherfucking thing. Now, that's not to say that you win every time, but I win more often than I lose. And that's the case. People walk into things all the time saying, "Oh, this is tough. I don't have a chance." And I think people think it's better to be surprised by a win than to be devastated by a loss. So they already talk themselves into this loss. And see, I told you that's exactly how it's going to go. But you're going to be better off if you're more confident. And with Donald Trump, I see a lot of things to make me confident. And I don't see too many things that are going on in this country right now that make me worry about Donald Trump. I see Donald Trump sinking like a fucking rock right now. Give you an example. We've talked about this before, but I've got another way to specifically explain it. Donald Trump and Joe Biden are supposed to be neck and neck in the polls, correct? Supposed to be really close. So it's going to be a battle. But I also told you that somehow, in spite of that great support by the Republicans, Donald Trump is really having some financial problems. And that doesn't make sense. If you've got a lot of support, you shouldn't have financial problems. You should be neck and neck with Joe Biden in financial problems. But in fact, you have less than half of what Joe Biden has. Donald Trump's got a lot of things he's got to accomplish before the election in November: criminal courts, bonds, dealing with other lawsuits, dealing with evidence that's coming out. But what is Donald Trump's main strategy? What was it in 2020? It was rallies. That's all he can really do. Stand up, talk shit, drag a bunch of Trump-la-fucks into a pasture someplace, whip them up into a frenzy, and then tell them lies that he doesn't mean and make them promises he'll never deliver. That's his strategy. And it had some success in 2020, certainly in 2016. But here's the deal. Here's the interesting thing. You want to know why I don't think Donald Trump will be the president. That is his main strategy. He's looking good in the polls, but he's got money problems. And you know one of the best ways to illustrate that money problem? In the entire month of March, 31 days in March, you know how many rallies he had? One. He had one. And that was in the Ohio primary rally. And he didn't even have to pay for that. That was set up by the Ohio Republicans or something like that. And he just went, talked his head off, got back on a plane, and slunk back down to Mar-a-Lago. His main strategy is rallies, and he had one in March. Better yet, you know how many rallies he's got planned on a schedule henceforth between now and November? You know how many he's got planned? Zero. He's got nothing planned because he doesn't have any money. Now, that's not to say he's not going to do some rallies or somebody comes in and gives him some money. That's certainly possible. But he's got nothing planned. He's trying to run for the presidency of the United States, and the extent of his campaigning is going to take place on Truth Social, maybe Fox News a little bit, and on the steps of courthouses in between trials. That's where he's going to campaign. Please tell me how somebody wins a presidential election when you have no money and you are campaigning. Anyway, we'll move on. I have another email. Hello, Boomer. Speaking of mental illness from your podcast and others, RFK Jr. has become the new subject of discussion, or should we say distraction. Yeah, this is a good one. Still have a cold, but it's almost gone, so I'm feeling pretty good. I've had some discussions with some friends about this guy and his new vice presidential choice, who makes Bobby Jr. look sane, Nicole Shanahan. These two are the darlings of the know-it-all libertarian cult. You know, people who hate seatbelts and think you should be allowed to drive through a school zone at 130 miles per hour because they have rights. Taxation is theft and a big government is evil, except when a hurricane comes and washes their house and their Beamer and their Land Rover into the Atlantic. Libertarians are basically fascist with smiley faces, as George Carlin described. They're really Trump-tards who want him to be president, but don't want to appear to be Trump-tards, so they hide behind the phony ideology. I call those half-assed Trumplicans. That got me in trouble one time. I'll tell you that in a minute. Now, they're all blaming Biden for high prices, but completely ignore the monopolies and collusion caused by years of deregulation and corrupt free market capitalism. And they wanted and voted for and now complain about. That's RFK Jr.'s deal. They won't vote for Trump outright to avoid ridicule, but will vote batshit Bobby Jr. because they think that takes away votes from Biden and shove the election to Trump. Just a public service announcement here. Your fellow boomers probably figured this out anyway. Thanks, Mike. Z-Man. Well, thank you, Z-Man. And I read something today or yesterday that said that Republicans don't seem to be worried about RFK Jr. Taking away votes from Republicans. Good. Good. Because as I've said before, if you just take a look at the facts, his ideology, he's an anti-vaxxer. He's a conspiracy theorist. How many Democrats do you think they're going to vote for RFK based on those things? How many Republicans do you think will vote for him because they just don't feel right about voting for Donald Trump anymore? First of all, I'm not even sure that he's going to be on the ticket when it comes down to it. He's going to need money. And yeah, he's got a vice presidential candidate that allegedly has some money. But RFK Jr. has been little more than a joke. And when it comes down to it, if he appears to be a problem, the Democrats will blow that motherfucker up. And you know how they'll blow him up? They'll take his own family, the royalty, political royalty in this country, to speak out against him. He's not a good choice for anything. He is a sick minded human being. There's just no two doubts, two questions about it. Now, what I was talking about, the half ass Republicans, I run into these people from time to time. They'll say, well, I don't like Donald Trump, but Joe Biden, he's horrible. Now, I know you're lying when you do that. I know you're lying when you do that. I don't like Donald Trump, so I can't get on him about voting for Donald Trump, but I can't vote for Joe Biden. So I guess I must vote for Donald Trump. Well, that's a bullshit answer. And there was a time my wife and I were with some friends, and they kind of took that tact. And and so I was just talking about it on the show one time. This was a long time ago, early on in the podcast, and I was talking about that and half-ass uh, Republicans, half-ass Trumpers, because they say they are, but they act like they are. Well, this friend who claims to never watch the news or anything like that because I don't want to deal with that stuff. And certainly wasn't going to listen to my podcast at the time because not many people knew about the podcast. But she went and dug it out after spending some time with them to listen to it to try to find something that I said that might apply to them so she could be mad at me. And that's exactly what she did. And she took offense to the half ass Republican or half ass Trumper comment. And I'm thinking, well, it wouldn't have bothered you if you didn't, if I wasn't right. So anyway, she's been angry with me ever since, and I don't give a fuck because she's a half-ass Trumper fucker. Um. Anyway, thank you, Z man. I appreciate that. Now, this will probably get me in trouble again. Fuck it. If she's still listening, too bad. She's already mad at me. Um. The next one starts out, dear meat. I mean, dear Mike, haha, referencing my granddaughter who has this thing with meat with me. First time caller here. I first found you when searching for a different old white guy who I never found. Out of millions of current podcasts, you are on the top of my queue every day through Spotify. Thank you for producing my favorite podcast. Thank you for listening. And thank you for the kind words. You're usually right. You're always funny. I nearly collapsed at work laughing so hard when you read the most epic ass kissing email ever generated by artificial intelligence. You didn't fall for it because you're one smart bitch. Thank you. I take that as a compliment. To the point, as the world learns the tough truths about Gaza, more and more people and countries are changing their minds, attitudes, and policies. The situation is changing quickly. It's becoming a rescue operation for Gaza. But today's news reports the United States is continuing to provide bombs, even as Israel bombs Syria today. Bernie Sanders and other Senate leaders demand to end to military support for the war crimes of the IDF and their attempts to suck us into a serious war in the region. Yes, genocides and Middle East conflict are age old, but we are providing the weapons on a silver platter in this case. Yes, we support our allies, but no, God damn it, we don't support war crimes when everyone is watching. Good point. I know the White House is steering a new course on this quicker than we realize, but it is fucking shocking to see a continuation of weapons shipments late in the genocide. Thank God it will end soon. Better days ahead, Gavin. Yeah, I think it will end soon, and it is a quandary. We have a responsibility to support allies, um, but at the same time, we don't want to be part and parcel to war crimes. And I've said the real problem here is that we have a leader in Israel. Now, whether people who are Israeli fans don't agree with me or not, this is just my opinion. You can agree with me or not agree with me. But the fact of the matter is, Bibi Netanyahu is a radical right Trump clone, and herein lies the problem. You can't negotiate. You can't compromise. You can't use common sense with somebody like Bibi Netanyahu any more than you can with Donald Trump. This is a tough situation. And I will tell you this, the reason this situation happened when it did is twofold. Russia, of course, is involved in this, and people may disagree with me, but remember what happened. Donald Trump went into the Oval Office shortly after his inauguration. Remember, he had a couple of Russian spies in there? He had a couple of Russian spies in the Oval Office, which shook everybody up. Then it was revealed that he inadvertently revealed some top secret military information to them, and it happened to be Israeli information. Wow, isn't that interesting? So Russia has this Israeli information. Russia has some influence over Iran, who in turn has influence over the Hamas. And then, surprise, surprise, against all better judgment, Hamas attacks Israel. Now, why would Vladimir Putin do this? Well, there's two reasons. Vladimir Putin wants to take the attention away from Ukraine and the bullshit he's doing there, and this is a way to take people's attention off of it. Another thing to consider, too, is that Vladimir Putin would love Donald Trump to be in the presidency, and he sees this as being damaging to Joe Biden. This kind of stuff is happening all the time. Let's take OPEC, for example. Gas prices are going up. Isn't that interesting that gas prices would go up as we head toward the election? Again, Saudi Arabia wants Donald Trump to be president of the United States. So all these international organizations and or countries are doing what they can do to help out their guy, Donald Trump. And it's not for our benefit. It's for their benefit. I don't really get into the Hamas Israeli thing because I've said I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't know much about it. But I will tell you this, it will come to an end soon. It will be much to the chagrin of the Republican Party. They need something. They need anything to use against Joe Biden. And this is one of those things they enjoy shoving in Biden's face. But it will come to an end. And Joe Biden will have some input in that end. And in the end, Joe Biden will probably benefit from it for being part and parcel to helping it be stopped. Excuse me. All right. Got another email. We got a few more emails. These emails will probably extend into the second half as well. Thanks, Gavin. Great letter. Hi, Mike. I'm a new listener to your podcast, and it's on my playlist every day at work. I caught your take on the people trying to pin a crazy conspiracy on the bridge collapse. These people are forgotten the first motivation of a terroristic attack, a body count. Why attack a bridge in the middle of the night with only 5 people on it as opposed to at 9:30 in the morning when it's bumper to bumper? Even if a factor is the disruption, they still want a body count. Keep it up, Lee in Las Vegas. And I'll agree with you. That has to be true. You know, everybody, anytime anything happens, people want to turn it into a conspiracy theory. And again, there's an agenda for that too. The people who want to turn it into a conspiracy theory happens to be the Trump-fucks, the evangelicals, the QAnon fucks, because they know if there is some conspiracy theory that people might latch onto, that it would be harmful to Joe Biden. It's ironic that Republicans keep trying to find ways to make Joe Biden look bad when all they really need to do is come up with some policies, some answers to problems we have in this country. But they categorically refuse to do that. They don't want to do anything. They don't want to accomplish anything. They just want to win, have power, and then run roughshod on this country like they did when Donald Trump was president. And we've got to stop them from doing that. We cannot allow that. And I think we're on the right track to do that. I think Donald Trump is sinking like a fucking rock, and the Republicans are sinking like a rock too. They're fighting amongst themselves. They're losing at every turn. Donald Trump can't even get out and campaign because he doesn't have money. He's taking the money from the RNC, so they can't even help the down ballot people. Everything's working in our best interest. Actually, everything that's going on with Donald Trump and the Republicans is better than we could even have hoped for going into an election. This is why I don't understand why people are so excited about Donald Trump's prospects in November. He has no prospects. He's sinking, and it's going to get worse, and it's never going to get better. All right. We are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, we are back on the Rational Boomer podcast, and as I've said, we've got some more emails. It's been a while since I haven't had a guest, so the emails start to stack up, and I want to give everybody a chance to get their emails in. Next one says, "Hello, Mike. Regarding your content being stolen by some motherfuckers on TikTok, I know you fixed it for now, but in case it comes up again, I saw the TikTok below from a lady that I follow. You might have already seen the TikTok, but I thought to send it to you just in case. And thank you very much. And for those that don't know what we're talking about, I had a little just prior to the podcast, recording the podcast with Ed. I got a notification that TikTok was kicking me out of um, the creative beta program, which means they pay me a certain amount of money for views I get, which seems only fair given the fact that they're making money off of me. And the reason they were doing that is they were saying that my content wasn't original. How much more original could it be? Just me talking. So anyway, I got that and I made an appeal, and I was kind of scathing in the appeal and suggested that, look, if you're going to allow people to steal my brand, my image, and do nothing about it, that sounds like a lawsuit. And I have somebody, a lawyer, um, who'll work on contingency to make as much money as we can. So take me out of the creative beta fund, and I'll just make more suing your fucking ass. And I didn't. I was a little more professional than that. But then I think in addition to that, there's a lot of people on TikTok that were kind of irritated when I mentioned it, and I'm sure they got a bevy of emails from peers of mine on TikTok. Anyway, I'm just bringing you up to date. Anyway, when I got off the podcast after with Ed, they'd already reinstated me into the program, and some of my videos that weren't were kicked out because they allegedly weren't original. So at this point, I'm fine. At this point, it's okay. And again, it's the money's nice. It's nice to get the money. You do something and they pay you a little bit. I'm happy with that. What it really was about, and I felt like I had to be tough about this, because this is really about a big company taking advantage of the small guy. We see it all the time in our lives. We see it in politics. And I thought, if I'm fighting every day for what's going on in politics and in our government, if I don't fight for this, what the fuck am I worth? So I did, and so far we won. And I'm not getting too excited about it as yet, but I'm glad at least they saw it through to do the right thing, at least for now. And thank you. I'll check out the TikTok as well. I may have seen it already because I've looked into it some. Anyway, the email continues on. I use the new feature in Apple Podcast in iOS 17.4 to view the transcript of the podcast from last night. I didn't know you could get a transcript of this podcast. Interesting. Then he says, out of curiosity, I did a search to find out how many times the word fuck was mentioned in the podcast with Ed. It gave me exactly 70 occurrences of the word fuck in an hour and a half show. Sounds like I'm slipping. Sounds like I'm slipping. Thanks for the heads up. I'm going to have to ramp it up a little bit when I'm on with Ed. Now, see, you have to consider this when Ed's on. Ed will say the word fuck far less than I will. So since Ed is taking up half the time, if it was just me, I could have done it 150 times. Easy. So I'll work a little harder on that. Email continues on. I also explored to see if the transcript could be translated to a different language so that via AI generated voice, the podcast could potentially be made available to worldwide audiences in their own native languages. Of course, I was not planning to do anything at all with your content. I was just exploring the possibilities to see what could be done. Due to the copyright material, Apple does not allow you to do much with podcast transcript. However, the copyright owner, you may be able to do a lot as translating the podcast to various languages out there, and then via AI generated voice, even voice similar to your own. The rest of the world can enjoy the podcast in their own native languages, the way we do here. Well, that's interesting. It's not something I've considered. I wouldn't even know how to fucking do that, to be honest with you. And you know by now, I'm too lazy to do that kind of shit. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I don't know what I would do to do it. Now, that said, it's important to note we do have a worldwide audience. In fact, we do have a worldwide audience. I get emails, of course, from Sweden, from Britain, from or UK and Ireland, Scotland, English speaking countries generally, but I do get them, Canada, of course. So it's always nice to get that international input. As far as the transcripts and AI generated voice, what could go wrong? Yeah, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. You know, Abe came to me. Abe was on the show a couple days ago, and he said, "Mike, would you mind terribly if I took your show and put it on my YouTube channel?" Oh, fuck no. Why would I? More people who see it, the better for me. I'm not going to send you a cease and desist because you're infringing on my brand. No, let's get the word out to as many people as possible. So, anyhow, thank you very much for that. He ends up by saying, "Thank you very much for the many podcasts and TikToks that you keep creating. In conclusion, fuck the motherfucker racist MAGA Republicans. Sincerely, Joe." I concur, Joe. Thank you very much. Now, this one's kind of interesting. Starts out and says, "Hello, fellow boomer. I want to share with you the extortion letter I got from my homeowner's insurance company, Allstate. I guess I'm not in good hands with Allstate anymore after being a customer for 21 years and never filed a claim. Here's the note. This is to provide notice as required pursuant to NJSA 5227EE-51 that Intagon National Insurance Company filed on February 16th, 2024, with the New Jersey Department of Banking and Insurance as a request for a rate increase in the amount of 29.4% for home condo renters. Under the proposed filing, the average homeowner's policy will see a rate change of 30%. The average tenant's policy will see a rate change of 25%. The average condominium's policy will see a rate change of 24%. The impact of the filing on your rates may be substantially depending on the terms of your policy and your individual circumstances. The request for a rate increase is subject to review and approval by the Department of Banking and Insurance pursuant to law, and the request ultimately may not be approved or may not be approved or may not be approved for the full amount requested. If approved in whole or in part, the rate will not affect existing policies until they come up for renewal. Yeah. There is no action needed at this time. Thank you for entrusting Intagon National Insurance Company with your insurance needs. We appreciate your business. Sincerely, Intagon National Insurance Company, which is obviously tied to Allstate. Fucking hate insurance companies. No reason to do it. They just feel like it. Now they got to get some other organization to agree with them. And I guess I'd be surprised if they disagree with them completely. They'll probably come back with some variation on what they're asking. They ask for high, they'll give them something in the middle, and then people like you and me get fucked. We talk about education, we talk about um, healthcare and the ridiculous high cost there, but insurance, that is a fucking scam. From car insurance all the way to health insurance, it's a fucking scam. And insurance companies in this country are as guilty of greed as any kind of company we can find in this country. I've gotten similar letters at different times in my life, and I share your frustration. Hopefully, there's something we can do about it. This is something we should put in our back pocket. And when the Democrats get control of the House and the Senate and the Oval Office, maybe we need to start talking some shit, start pushing some issues. Yeah, that's absolute bullshit, and I appreciate your email. And I'm sorry that you're going through this, but I have a feeling you're not the only one. All right, the next one goes like this. Hi, Mike. Here in Iowa, two of our Republican representatives and our Secretary of State filed amicus briefs with the Supreme Court in the mifepristone case. They want the court to bend to their will and ban mifepristone. When I hear about shit like this, I want out of this fucking state. I keep hoping we can flip the state blue. Maybe then we won't unofficially be considered idiots from wandering around. We used to be Iowa nice. That's long gone, but I hope we can get back to that someday. In Kentucky, they are once again looking to change how a replacement senator will be picked. Kentucky went through about a year ago, and Governor Bashir vetoed the fucking bill. Apparently, the Republican supermajority is looking at trying to override his veto. He has said in the past that if they do override his veto and vacancy happens, he will just appoint someone and tell the legislature to sue him to stop him. They basically admitted they want to steal the seat if Moscow Mitch retires or keels over. They can only win if they cheat or change the rules. Lastly, I'd be glad to do a podcast with Neil. Neil. That goes for any of the listeners. If we can make it work, I'd be more than willing to work it out. This come from Eric from Iowa, of course. Um, that's right. Neil said he wanted to do something with Eric. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm going to tell you this. I'm happy to do the podcast with two other people. I've done the podcast with as many as three other people. And in my mind, when we get three other people, it gets way too confusing, way too convoluted, people stepping on each other all the time. But if there's a situation where two people want to come on together, I'm all for it. You have to email me, and then we have to email the other person to see if we can coordinate it. That's the other tough part, is coordinating the shit. But I'm open to it if you want to. But I'd prefer that it's no more than two people, honestly. All right. Next email. Dear Rational Boomer, before 2016, I didn't give much of a rat's ass about politics, and then Shitstain got elected. For over 7 years now, I've allowed the criminal to rent space in my head for free of charge, and I've been miserable. I'd been overjoyed by the election of our first black president and was so excited to think we'd finally elect a woman when the world unexpectedly changed for the worse. I used to be able to name the president, vice president, and a few other high ranking politicians. Now I can name damn near every human being in Washington and probably qualify for an honorary law degree. I have listened to so much cable news, so many podcasts, and read so many books and articles. I find myself in a constant state of rage and anxiety that makes sleep very difficult. Thank God I recently ran across your podcast. You're a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. I appreciate your thoughtful reassurances and the mellow way you deliver it. Plus, I'm quite a fan of the frequent F bombs. Well, who isn't? And when they are called for, fucking a right. I'm now recommending your podcast to my friends and acquaintances. Well, thank you very much. I do have a couple of questions. Assuming Trump loses in November, do you think, given time, we'll finally be done with him and his ilk? My fear is that he'll try to run again in 28 if cholesterol hasn't run its course. And hopefully, losing will the courts finally get their asses in gear and nail the bastard? And lastly, do you think we'll ever have a bipartisan government that's willing to work together and compromise to the best interest of the American people? Thank you for what you do, Tanya from Cleveland, Ohio. Thank you very much, Tanya. Um, that's the first question. A couple of questions. Do you think, given time, we'll finally be done with Donald Trump and his ilk? Yeah, absolutely. I do. And I think the 2024 election is the time when that happens. I could be wrong, but it only makes sense. And the reason it makes sense is that they've been losing with Donald Trump and this ideology since 2018. They're kind of stuck sticking with it now as they go into 2024, but after they lose again, they have no choice but to change. They're going to have to try to reimagine themselves and come up with something different, a different tack, if they hope to be of any impact on politics at all. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, in 2024 in November, if they get a blue wave and they get destroyed, it's going to take a while for them to come back. And I promise you, Donald Trump won't be anywhere near the presidential election in 2028. He won't be in the mental or physical condition to do it, and he could very well be locked up in jail. People are worried about court cases going on after the election, and I'm not worried about them. In fact, I look forward to them. Manhattan District will get us the convictions we need prior to the election. And if the other ones don't happen till after the election, think about this. Donald Trump will have no protection. He won't be able to say he's running for reelection. He will have multiple convictions on his ass, and this guy will fade away and, as you say, probably fucking keel over when it's all said and done. So I think the future looks bright. I think we will ultimately get to a bipartisan situation in Congress again, and only because that's the only options the Republicans have. That's the way they're going to have to go if they want to regain any kind of power or control in Congress. And if they decide they want to stick with what Donald Trump is, good on them, because they'll just be inconsequential for a long fucking time. All right, to the next email. Hi, Mike. First of all, I enjoyed your podcast today. Abe has a new follower. Yeah, Abe's a great guy, very funny guy, smart guy of a like mind. Yeah, definitely follow Abe. So I attempted to send TikTok an email to voice my opinion about how they took away your ability to be paid as a content creator. Both email addresses I used after several Google searches were returned Mailer Damon. The address I used was legal at TikTok.com and info at TikTok.com. Yeah, I tried those two and those don't work. Could you post the address we should use so we can send emails to the correct address? Happy Easter. Looking forward to hearing tales of Junie and Easter. Gracie. Jacques and I enjoying a warm day in Quartzsite. Thank you very much, Gracie. And you don't need to send the email. It's been rectified for now. The only thing I would tell you, if you're on TikTok and you run across one of these phonies, these fakes, just uh, report them and block them. I can only assume now that they'll be looking out for them now that we went through what we went through, and maybe they'll do their job and take them out. Hopefully that's the case. Hopefully we've illustrated to them who's the real rational mover and who are the fakes. And now that they should know that, hopefully they'll keep hands off of me for a little bit. That's kind of the way I've seen it in the past when they've gone after somebody and somebody's pushed back. They usually just are hands off those people, at least for a while. And hopefully that'll be the case with my situation. But we'll see. I don't count on anything. All right, some stories. Former President Donald Trump had an online meltdown. Oh, big surprise after a report that clients of the daughter of his hush money trial judge brought in millions by using the case as a fundraising tool. The New York Post reported Saturday that two Democrats who are clients of Lauren Merchan's Authentic Campaigns political consulting firm brought in $93 million in campaign donations after detailing the criminal case in solicitation emails. Well, isn't that interesting? They threw it back in Donnie Trump's face. Donnie Trump looks stupid again. He helps out the Democrats. Way to go, Donnie. Keep it up. The report said Trump's legal team is now considering demanding Judge Juan Marchand recuse himself from the trial slated to begin on April 15th. This is a disgrace to our legal system, an outrage, Trump wrote on Truth Social. Judge Marchand should be immediately sanctioned and recused, and this fake case, only kept alive by the highly conflicted judge, should be completely dismissed right away. There is no case, there is no crime. Oh, you can smell the flop sweat, can't you? He's terrified. Andy McCarthy, Jonathan Turley, and all legal experts and scholars universally agree that this is a case that should have never been brought. It is a political election interfering witch hunt, just like all of the other hoaxes headed up and coordinated by the DOJ against the political opponent of crooked Joe Biden in order to help get the worst president in history of the United States reelected. Well, this is ironic that he would say the DOJ is behind this particular judge, Judge Juan Marchand. This is a state court. The DOJ is not behind it. But again, Donald Trump's a dumb fuck. So what are you going to do? The Post report claimed Lauren Merchand's clients, Representative Adam Schiff, oh, that's fucking beautiful, and the Senate Majority PAC highlighted the trials in their emails. Yeah, Adam Schiff, he knows how to play this fucking game, and he played Donald Trump once again. Schiff's fundraising message stated it is a somber moment and unprecedented for a former president to be indicted, but his alleged offenses are also so unprecedented. Trump will respond as he always does, playing the victim and blaming others for having the temerity to investigate him in the first place. The PAC wrote, breaking news, Donald Trump indicted by Manhattan grand jury. This is an important moment for our democracy, but our work isn't over. Isn't that ironic? He goes after the judge. He goes after the judge's daughter, and Adam Schiff makes money on the deal. Oh, that's got to piss him off, especially when he's got no money and can't fundraise. See what I'm telling you? Everything Donald Trump does, he fucks up. He doesn't think ahead. He doesn't investigate what he's doing. He just reacts emotionally and he fucks up. All right. Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. You've heard Ed talk about her and his disdain for her. Well, she said Sunday that Americans should be incensed over a Democratic plan to table the impeachment of Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas in the Senate. What she's saying there is, of course, the House Republicans impeached Alejandro Mayorkas. It now has to go to the Senate, and Chuck Schumer sounds like he's going to do what Mitch McConnell did hundreds of times when he was the leader in the House or in the Senate. He's going to put it on his desk, leave that motherfucker sit there. They know he's not going to lose in the Senate, but they want the noise, they want the narrative, they want all the talk and the intrigue of it. So Chuck Schumer's just saying, yeah, we'll just put that over to the side for a little bit. We'll get to it when we want to get to it. Now, during an interview on Fox News, guest host Jason Shavitz asked Blackburn about Speaker Mike Johnson's intentions to send Mayorkas impeachment articles to the Senate for a trial. Yes, and on Wednesday we expect them to come to us, Blackburn explained. We will receive the articles. We will be sworn in. Each senator is sworn into the court of impeachment. And now she's upset about the prospect of maybe tabling these things, even though Mitch McConnell did it literally hundreds of times when he had control in the Senate. Too bad, Marcia. Fuck yourself. She goes on to say we should move forward at that point with the impeachment trial or a committee of impeachment, she continued. But what we're hearing for the first time ever in our nation's history, yeah, first time ever, Chuck Schumer is wanting to table the impeachment articles. Absolutely. Why give you a platform to talk bullshit? The whole impeachment with Mayorkas was bullshit. You had no evidence, you had no witnesses. You're just trying to make noise, trying to make Joe Biden look bad. And the fact that Chuck Schumer isn't going to help you do that, that should not be too fucking surprising. She says every American should be incensed by this. No, just some dumb motherfuckers are incensed. Blackburn accused the secretary of doing Joe Biden's bidding. Well, he works for fucking Joe Biden, for Christ's sake. What is he supposed to do? He should stand for his impeachment trial as instructed by the Constitution of the United States, she concluded. And people should show up to subpoenas as instructed by the Constitution of the United States. Donald Trump was impeached twice and went through the process. He never testified once. Now, just years earlier, Republicans in the Senate effectively tabled the nomination of Merrick Garland for Supreme Court Justice. Remember that? Now, there's no record of Blackburn expressing outrage at that time. See, this is what I've always said. These fucks don't think ahead. They do crazy, bullshit, ridiculous stuff, and never in their wildest dreams do they ever imagine that this would be shoved back in their face. Well, Marcia, it's been shoved back in your face. Fuck off. All right. Donald Trump has a lot to worry about. We know that. You can see it in his face. You can hear it in his voice. You can smell it in the dirty diaper and the flop sweat. After facts of his involvement in an alleged election subversion attempts went public in a recent ruling recommending disbarment for his former legal advisor, according to a new report. Yeah. We're talking about John Eastman, the disbarment hearings, and apparently some new evidence came out. Trump worked with John Eastman in matters related to the 2020 election, and a disciplinary judge recently found that Eastman should be disbarred for going too far for his client in trying to overturn a fair vote. But buried in that order is a damning evidence against Trump himself, according to the Washington Post piece. Now, Eastman can appeal, but Judge Yvette Rowland's meticulous 128-page ruling rests on devastating factual findings and airtight legal analysis. Conservative Trump skeptic columnist Jennifer Rubin wrote for the Post, but those analyses also apply to Trump. These factual findings mirror the House January 6th committee findings. Whatever the venue, whomever the defendant, a mound of evidence points to Eastman, and by extension, Trump, and his participation in an attempt to steal the election. Juries in the Georgia case where both are indicted and are pleading not guilty in a special counsel Jack Smith's D.C. case against Trump will hear many of the same facts. So, what's come out in this disbarment hearing is going to help Jack Smith in D.C. and in Florida and in Georgia. Again, good job, guys. Rubin further notes that the judge rejected Eastman's First Amendment defense, which is the same defense Trump has raised repeatedly. Now, these decisions are not binding on the judges or juries in the D.C., January 6th, or Georgia trials, but they certainly underscore Trump's legal vulnerability. Moreover, these decisions suggest that Trump's advice of counsel's defense inapplicable if you and your counsel are engaged in a crime. It's doomed to fail, she wrote. In sum, Rowland's decision does not bode well for Eastman in his criminal case in Georgia, And insofar as Trump is likely to face much of the same evidence and to offer the same defense, he has plenty to worry about in D.C. and in Georgia. See what I mean? It's all kind of coming apart. All of these things do have impact on everything else. It's all very incestuous. Like they said, what is being used in this disbarment hearing isn't necessarily precedent to be used for sure in these other trials, but they can use it as a reference, and it's a good reference. And if we have a normal judge with these findings, it's reasonable to think that the other judges will find in the same way because it's the facts, it's the law. And that works against Donald Trump, of course. He doesn't like truth, law, and justice. He wants chaos, delay, and to find a way to get out of it. I've said before, Donald Trump's only hope here is to become president and make all this stuff go away. That is a hell of a Hail Mary pass. That's not going to happen. He's not going to win the presidency. I'd almost be willing to bet my house on that, but I can't do that because where I live, I put my kid's name, so I don't have the right to do that. But anyway, I do feel pretty strongly about it. He can't win the presidency. If he can't win the presidency, he can't shut down all these trials and investigations and such. And as I said, if they go on beyond the election and Donald Trump loses, he's profoundly fucked because he's got no protection. He's just a loser who's already lost a number of times. He's not running for president. He's been an utter failure for the Republican Party. They will walk away from him. And as I've said, the Manhattan District Court case might be the one that digs the grave. These other trials that we're worried about may just be the dirt on the grave because you can only do so much to Donald Trump. You can only put him away so long. You can only fine him so much, and you can only take him out of the narrative so far. And this Manhattan District trial, I think, will go a long way to ending things or the demise of Donald Trump. So we'll see what happens. All right, we are going to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.